In this video, we're going to take a look at some frame generator documentation techniques available to us in the Drawing Manager for Autodesk Inventor. Here I have the Frame Generator Documentation IDW, as well as the Frame Generator Documentation IAM open from our Working Files directory. Inside of the drawing, I already have 3 views placed of the assembly. To begin the documentation on this, we could obviously come in here and start putting dimensions on, but let's go ahead and take a look at putting our parts list in first. I'll go up to the Annotate tab and choose the Parts List command. Here I will select one of the views of the assembly. This will be a structured bill material with a table wrap for the left direction, and I'll choose OK. I'll go ahead and drop this in, attached to the upper left corner of the screen. I'll zoom in a little bit and just extend some of these columns for their width. Pull it off from here. I'll extend my part number in this quantity column. Now, as we look at this, I can tell that there's items listed on the left-hand side, quantities, part numbers, descriptions, and materials. However, I would like to show this a little bit differently. I would like to have the individual quantities and then the total amount of those individual quantities show up in the parts list. So in order to change the different columns that we have here in our parts list, we'll simply right-click on it and choose Edit Parts List. We'll choose the Column Chooser, which is the first button. Here I would like to remove Quantity, and I'm going to add in Base Quantity, and also Item Quantity. I'll move these up in the list, and choose OK. Now I see I have item numbers, the item quantity, and the base quantity of that. If I would like the total quantity to show up behind there, obviously it's just a little bit of multiplication of the item quantity and the base quantity. However, maybe you want to see that total amount. So I will go back to the column chooser and re-add back in quantity. And I'll add that right behind base quantity. I'll choose OK. And now we can see the item, item quantity, base quantity, total quantity, the part number, description, and the material that it's made out of. I'll choose OK. And here I will adjust my columns so it fits better. There we are. Clearly, my item numbers need to be reassigned because perhaps one item number showed up as my reference item that was my frame skeleton. So let's go over to the assembly and take a look at a few other things. You can right-click on one of your views and choose Open to open that assembly up. Or if you already have it open in memory, I'll just choose it from my lower left. Inside of here, let's take a look at the bill of material. On the bill of material for the Structured tab, I can tell the base quantity, item quantity, and quantity totals do show up here. One of the first things I want to adjust, though, that was incorrect was my item numbers. I'll go to the top and choose a Renumber Items, and here I'll start with number 1. Now, the other item I have here that did not show up in the parts list was the Cut Detail 1 that I have as a column here. This is something that gets filled out automatically as you apply end treatments. So I can tell on this member, it received a notch. This one received a general cut, another notch. And if I scroll down, I will also see that some miters were applied and what angle those miters are. This is one side of a member. What I would like to get is the other side, or cut detail number 2. So if you don't have these in your columns, simply go up to Add a Custom iProperty column. Click to add another iProperty column button here, and type in Cut Detail 2. Choose OK, and now you have the Cut Detail 2 on the other side. Now, item number 12 here, you can see I have 2 different types of cut details, 25 degrees, and the other one is set to cut. What happened for this particular member is one of them was created with a 25-degree miter, and the other one was created with another end treatment, such as a trim to frame or a trim to a face on another frame member. It does not give us our angle that is created by, so we just get a generic word called cut. The other thing to be aware of, if you are going to utilize Cut Detail 1 and Cut Detail 2, is if you were to remove one of your end treatments, and then you're going to re-add a new end treatment, it would actually be called Cut Detail 3. So be very careful if you're going to adjust your cut details. You might have to go into the iProperties and rename their custom iProperty from cut detail 3 or cut detail 4 or cut detail 5 back down to cut detail 1 or 2 in order to utilize the next trick I'm about to show you. So here I'll choose Done, and the members that were in question were these members here, these two C channels. They were created with the miter on the one side here of 25 degrees, and the other side they were created with the trim extend to face command. Now, in order to get those to show up in our parts list, we'll simply go back over to our drawing. We'll edit our parts list that we have here. We'll go back to our column chooser, and at the bottom, we will choose New Property. And you make sure you put this in the exact same way. It has to be called Cut Detail 1, no spaces. There's Cut Detail 1. Another new property, we'll do Cut Detail 2. Choose OK, and then OK for this dialog box as well. You can see those automatically fill themselves out. So it does give me an indication that I have a cutting interaction to take place on those particular members. I'll choose OK to this. Now I'll just readjust my parts list here again. There we have it. Now this is looking much better for my documentation. However, I still don't have a valid angle for what that cut is for cut detail number 2. In fact, I don't even like the name cut detail up here. So let me right click and choose Edit Parts List. If I scroll over, I can right click on the column and format that column to give it a different name. Perhaps I'd like to have it called End Treatment 1. And the other one called End Treatment 2. Choose OK. And just adjust my columns here again. There we are. But again, I don't really have an indication of what that cut value is. Now, there's multiple ways you can go about documenting that now. You could go ahead and document it on the assembly with an angle reference on the frame that you have after you balloon it out and it's easier to tell which member is which. Or you could place in a base view of just that particular stick of that member of your frame. And then you could document that as a precise documentation of an individual file, or as just perhaps another view that you have over here in the upper right that will designate those different cut informations. One last note about the documentation here. If I zoom in, I'll notice my part number is actually equivalent to my file name. Now, if I wanted to have a unique controllable part number, I definitely want to make sure that my part number from Content Center button during the insertion of those members is not checked. That gives me the flexibility to adjust my part numbers inside of their iProperty so things show up here correctly. If I didn't do that, I might get some really odd numbers and really odd information showing up under my part numbers that I don't want.